Greetings, Chris Hislop here from the Montana World Affairs Council. Welcome to another episode of Global Perspectives on Security. This is our International Security Affairs webcast that helps you understand those things that are happening beyond and behind the headlines. So past the fluff and the buzz of news sources, we try to dig a little bit deeper to help you understand what's going on and how it affects us. We're joined, as always, by our good friend and partner, Mick Mulroy. He's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, retired CIA paramilitary operations officer, and United States Marine. He's a national security analyst, a co-founder of the Lobo Institute, and a board member of the Plato Institute in Athens, Greece. Coming to us from Whitefish, Montana. Mick, how are you?
Great, Chris. Coming to you live from the passenger seat of my wife's 4Runner.
Well, I'll tell the audience that I tried to convince Mick to say that he is actually somewhere in Ukraine in an SUV, but no, he's still here in Montana. So Mick, a lot of buzz on the impending counteroffensive by Ukraine. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what this actually is?
Yeah, Chris. So everybody is waiting for this to commence. I think the strike in Crimea, which really took out a significant fuel depot of the Russians, was probably one of the preparatory actions for the offensive itself to take place. Right now, it looks like they've done a lot of work to determine through intelligence collection and analysis where the Russians are most vulnerable. Now it's time to take all of the things that NATO and the United States has collectively given them, which includes Stryker vehicles, Bradleys, the Challenger tank, the Leopard tank, and the M1 Abrams, and integrated them into their operations. So take combined arm operations and put those new weapon systems and those newly trained soldiers to the task. And those are exactly what they need to try to break through the Russian lines, which is not going to be an easy task, but it's much easier with main battle tanks, significant artillery, and these infantry fighting vehicles. So I think they will try to go straight across from the territory they currently hold by the Dnipro River and cut off the Russians from the Crimea Peninsula. I think that's probably what their plan is going to be. They probably had to deviate a bit because of the intelligence leaks, but I do think it'll be something along those lines, which would seriously challenge Russia's ability to keep troops in the peninsula of Crimea.
So Mick, we spoke last time or the time before about those intelligence leaks. On the question of Ukraine counteroffensive, it was not very optimistic, looking for a kind of a long and drawn out battle and a continuation of the war. Has anything changed in the past few weeks to suggest that this counteroffensive might go in a different way?
So that's a good question, Chris, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. This could be a long, drawn-out fight. I would say that this, and I am part of I was part of the intelligence community that did predict that Ukraine would fall within a matter of days. So with that in mind, don't underestimate the Ukrainian will to fight, right? Because here we are well past a couple of days, and the Ukrainians are not only holding off the Russian invasion, but they're taking territory back, or they were during the last counteroffensive. So I think we could see some significant gains. It all depends on the will of the Russians to keep fighting. They are losing so many people. We just saw, and I don't know it to be true, but the latest leaked report says that the Russians have taken 100,000 casualties in Bakhmut alone. So let that thing sink in for a while. And that's 20,000 killed in action, 80,000 significantly injured to the point of not being in the fight, in trying to take one city of Bakhmut, right? So that shows that the Russians' will to fight has got to be pretty challenged right now. And if the Ukrainians can get through their lines and start taking territory, we could actually see them crumble pretty quickly. I think we're gonna know in the first few days of the counteroffensive how things are going and how the Russians are holding up, or whether they're fleeing and the Ukrainians can just take as much territory back as they can.
And Mick, let's just take the scenario of a positive outcome on the counteroffensive. And also try to zoom out a bit. What would a successful Ukrainian counteroffensive deliver both to the situation on the ground, but also the geopolitical situation? What changes would occur given a successful counteroffensive?
So the best case scenario would be that the Russians withdraw from Ukrainian territory. It's potentially possible in what I would just say mainland Ukraine, not including the Crimea Peninsula. That would take a lot to get Russia to abandon because it is such a significant strategic location for them. But if they could, that's, obviously would be a great thing, because then Russia would essentially be jettisoned from the Ukrainian territory. And hopefully then we can help build up their defenses and come up with a lasting peace. I don't think that's the likely scenario. That would be the best case scenario. The likely scenario would be to challenge Russia so much in the Crimean Peninsula that there could be a negotiated peace in which Putin does not want to lose that which he had prior to this main invasion in February of last year, right? So he's going to want to hold something. If he feels like he could lose Crimea, then potentially that would bring them both to the negotiation tables. I don't know if Ukraine would be willing to basically concede territory. I would guess that they are not, which is why there's so much predictions on this conflict lasting quite a long time.
Well, Mick, it sounds to me like you and I are going to have to get back on the webcast here before too long to see what the outcomes of the counteroffensive is. So special thanks to you, Mick, co-director at the Lobo Institute, good friend and partner here. And special thanks to our friends at the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, Allegiance and Stockman Bank, who help us bring this and so many more international programs to you. Mick, let's talk in a week or two and see where this thing is shaking out. Till then, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.